Matt here from Spinnerbaits. Today we're going to be looking at this Beetlespin on a blade rig that's taken the bass tournament circuit by storm the last couple of years. Essentially it's just a Beetlespin blade attached to a vibrating blade, a vibe blade. Basically when that's brought through the waters you get the swimming action, the vibrating action of the blade, along with the flash and vibration produced by the rotating Colorado blade on the Beetlespin. What this does is it just basically, it's a lure that a lot of fish haven't seen in a lot of the impoundments and rivers before, and it just puts out a very large profile in the water that attracts some really vigorous strikes, and it's a real aggressive strike that we get in. And also we find that a lot of the fish that you're catching, you catch them on these where you've just run a jackal or a spinnerbait past those fish and they haven't taken those. So today we'll look at some rigging options that we've got with setting these guys up. And one thing that we get asked a lot of at Spinnerbaits is also how to rig these up so that they run true without colliding with the blades and they swim straight. So there's a little bit of tuning involved and we'll run through that today. So with the rigging options, the first option that we've got is to take your blade. This is a Next Gen Excite blade 3/8 in TNT colour. And we've just got the clip that's supplied with the lure, and we've just moved it to the third hole back. You can see there's 4 toe points on the top of the blade. We've just moved that clip to the third toe point. So from that there then we take our jig spinner blade, we've attached that to our main line that we've got here. I like to choose a jig spinner blade that's suited to the colour of the blade and the colour of the water quality, same as what you would if you were choosing a spinnerbait blade. So with this coppery coloured blade, dark coloured blade, I'm going to use a gold blade on the jig spinner. And what I've done there is I've actually bent the jig spinner attachment section around so that it's all in line with the arm of the jig spinner, and we'll run through why we do that in a second. So we then take our jig spinner, attach it to our blade, and what we've done there, you see how that being straightened out. You can see the alignment that we've got there with that. So with that alignment there, what we've got there is that alignment there allows for the lure to swim straight, to track straight. So all we've done is we've just got our pair of pliers there, pinch that around. We then also just want to cinch up that clip at the top, and we also want to cinch up our clips on the actual blade itself. Okay, now the advantage of that setup there is to actually have the more distance between the Beetlespin and the blade, or the Beetlespin blade and the blade itself, so that as it's swimming through the water, the blade can sit there and track and vibrate, and the Beetlespin blade can do its thing without too much commotion going on. It's not going to foul all that often. Sometimes it will foul on the cast as you're actually casting, but sometimes by doing a catapult cast they can actually prevent that. So that's the rigging option number one. One of the things that we do also like to do is just bend that Beetlespin blade out a little bit, just to increase the distance between the back of the blade and the blade of the jig spinner. Now the other option that we've got is to lose the clip off of the blade. So that's a Next Gen Excite blade in 3/8 in black and gold, and we've still got the 4 toe points, but you see we haven't got the clip attached on there. We then got a jig spinner as it comes attached out of the packet, and you can see with this one here the hook section is actually perpendicular to the alignment of the rest of the lure. So what we do with that there then is we hook that through the same toe point that we would normally on if we were using it on with the clip. So for the Next Gen Excite blades, to get the best vibration and action out of the lures, we like to put them on the third hole back. Seems to work the best. This takes a little bit of fiddling to get it on because it is a bit tight. So we get that in to make sure that, as you can see there now, as that lure is going to be running through the water, that clip's aligned the right way. Make sure that you get the lure set up on the right side of the lure, so that when it's running, it's all going to be running in line. Same deal, we just stretch that out a little bit there. We also want to get our pair of pliers and just cinch that up with that clip there. Okay, now what this setup here does going through the water is it does seem to deaden the action of the blade itself, but the vibration and the flash coming off the Colorado blade is still quite strong. What this will sometimes do though is it will sometimes impact the jig spinner blade on the top of the blade itself, and what this can do is as it's swimming through the water and that impacts on there, it sends out an audible sound into the water, and it also stops this swimming for a second, and it just flutters in the water column just for a split second. That can quite often be a trigger for fish when they're really finicky or when they're holding really tight to structure and they're really aggressive. So that's another rigging option that we've got. Just beware though that using it with this rigging option, that when it's running, you will take the paint and roughen the edge up on the back of your blade. You can see there we've lost a bit of paint there. That's only after a few casts. So this option though does seem to work quite well still, and there's less, without that clip in the way, it doesn't seem to foul quite as often. If you're finding that it is still fouling, try catapult casting the lure out, so that will help to negate any fouling that you may encounter. Now the gear that I like to fish this on is a spinning rod setup with either a 1500 or 2000 size reel. We find that the spinning reel works better to keep the high retrieve speed up that you need for the rig, to ensure that it's not, to keep the speed up to make sure that it's swimming properly. I also like to use a stiff rod. This is a blank that I would normally use for spinnerbaiting. It's a Barrabass Rods XSB 822. It's a moderate fast action, 10 to 14 pound, with a cast rate of 1/4 ounce to 5/8 of an ounce. It's quite a versatile blank. But what we use this for is with the stiff action rod, it just takes out any of the drag caused by the horsey rig coming through the water. Takes a lot of the action out of the rod, and when the fish strike, if you're using a very soft tapered rod, what will actually happen is the fish can strike at it and the hooks don't set. They can throw the hooks later on. We're using a stiff action rod that's a fast action. The action of the rod's taking out the drag from the lure as it's being dragged through the water, and then when the fish strikes, it's got a solid connection back to the rod so that you can get a good solid hook set. Because we usually use this around some pretty heavy structure, I'm using 12 pound mainline and 12 to 14 pound leader. There's no real advantage to using a lighter leader with this setup, because the strikes are very aggressive, they're very reaction strikes, and you are fishing this quite often around some pretty tough structure, so you want the abrasion resistance of a heavier leader. Now where I normally fish this lure is around edges where I'd normally fish a spinnerbait or a jackal. It's just another option to throw around those areas. Areas like standing timber, weed beds, plain banks like what we see behind me here, anything like that where the fish are holding up on the edges, this lure will work. So hopefully guys, that's answered a few of your questions on how to set this lure up to rig properly. Let's get into some of the action.
Carry me places I'd rather be. Well-mannered gardens, well-tempered seas, where gathering reason I should believe that this is different, that this isn't free. How could this be? I'm on my way to better days. I'll find my faith, I'll find a way. I'm on my way to better days. I'll find my faith. I will slip again, and you'll find me. I will live again, and you'll find me.
So where I like to fish this rig, guys, is around edges, so usually around standing timber, steep rocky banks, weed edges, or sometimes just plain banks, depending on the location and the dam that you're in. If you're fishing in creeks and rivers and those sort of areas, just the normal snags and those sort of areas that are typical fish holding areas, the best way to fish this is just cast it into the target zone, try to get it as close to the target as possible, close to the snag as possible, and just begin a slow retrieve, a nice steady slow rolling retrieve, occasionally pausing it and maybe letting it sink to the bottom, just to get those fish that are holding up a bit deeper out a bit wider. That's really the best way to fish it. It's a no-brainer really. It's not difficult at all. The best way to do it is just to make sure that you're getting your lure right into the strike zone. It's just a simple principle of the same as if we were using spinnerbaits or jackals, or lipless crankbaits or anything like that. So that's the types of areas that I like to fish it. I have fished it in a few flats areas, so casting it out, letting it sink to shallow flats. If the fish are holding in sort of 10 to 20 feet of water on a flat, I do like, I have caught fish in the past throwing this out and letting it sink to the bottom and slowly retrieving it back the same as you would a normal blade. So it's quite a versatile lure as far as where you can fish it and how you can fish it.
Meanings of your past. I'm on my way to better days. You'll find your faith, you'll find a way. You're on your way to better days. You'll find your faith. I'm on our way to better days. We'll find our faith, we'll find a way.